Welcome to Accommodating Learning Differences with Everyday Microsoft Tools. In this session, we're going to talk about helping your students with tools you already have. My name is Jamie Wright, and I am very excited to be with you today. So just to give you a little background, again, my name is Jamie Wright, and I am by day a technology integration coach in Clarksville, Montgomery County School System in Clarksville, Tennessee. I'm also a professional learning specialist for NCCE, the Northwest Council for Computer Education. I also have the privilege of being a Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert. My background, to talk to you about accommodations, I've been in education, public education for 20 years, 16 years as a classroom teacher. This is my 4th year as an instructional coach. And I hold, my original degree is in history, but I hold master's degrees in administration and special education, and had the great privilege to be a special education teacher for several years before leaving the classroom to coach. So accessibility is a huge passion of mine, and I'm excited to share this with you today. So a lot of times we see as teachers common accommodations come up for students on IEP plans, on 504s, and on plans for English language learners. And a lot of the most common accommodations say things like minimize distractions or provide directions in multiple ways. They may also say provide read alouds, provide translated materials, or provide an alternate setting. So, seeing these when we are teaching in a world where a lot of our teaching is done strictly remotely or virtually, how do we go about meeting these needs for students? So, what we're going to do in this brief session is we're going to take a look at these common accommodation types and talk about the tools you're already using every day in Microsoft or may not know about in Microsoft that will easily help you to accommodate your students. So let's look at these accommodation types one at a time. Let's talk about minimizing distractions first. So, one of the best tools out there for helping students is the immersive reader. And what I love about the immersive reader is all of the tools that it appears in. Not only is it a part of all of Microsoft's Office suite, but it's also an integral part of other tools. You'll find it in Nearpod, you'll find it in Flipgrid, you'll find it all over the internet, Wakelet, tons of places. So the immersive reader is just such a powerful tool. And what I love about the immersive reader, let's talk about using it just for minimizing distractions. The immersive reader, when a student turns it on, it provides automatically a clean view of the text. So it pulls out all of that extra surrounding material that can kind of busy up the screen and easily distract the student for whom that's an issue. One of the other powerful tools we can use is the accessibility checker. So, checking for accessibility in all Microsoft tools under the Review tab will help ensure that you remove as many distractions as possible from a presentation, from a homework assignment as possible before you send it off to students or to parents who need to access it virtually. So those are just 2 suggestions for minimizing distractions. Let's talk about providing directions in multiple ways. So what I love about this accommodation, we hear it so often, and it may be phrased differently where you teach. You may see it as repeat directions or provide in multiple formats. So immersive reader, again, allows us to provide directions to students in a way that they can both see and hear the directions. So it allows them to see that direction in more than one capacity, more than one way. In OneNote, one of the awesome things that I can do as the teacher is I can insert audio or video directions directly alongside my written directions for my students. So what I love about inserting video directions, especially in this time, is it provides me a connection with students who are not directly in front of me. So that relationship that we build when we're in front of each other one-on-one, if I'm at least sending myself to my students in some small part in video direction, they're getting a piece of me too. So not only are you providing an accommodation, you're building a relationship. One other way, and by the way, that works seamlessly in Teams as well, integrating into the OneNote in Teams or using recordings in Teams to give your students directions. All right, let's move on to Flipgrid. So in Flipgrid, teachers can record video directions, provide type directions, link directions, and the immersive reader will read the type directions to the students. So you get a huge bang for your buck all in one place. So my students are seeing my face. They can hear the directions reread. They can read the directions on the screen. So just a few simple ways to provide directions in multiple ways using these awesome tools. Okay, let's take a look at our next type of accommodation. Let's talk about providing read alouds. I feel like read alouds is probably the most common accommodation that we see on IEPs for any student with a specific learning disability in language. So, read alouds can be done in many different ways with Microsoft tools. And what I love about this is while I'm talking through these, think about how you're empowering the student, teaching them these different accommodation tools. You'll notice my first point up there is teaching the students to use the immersive reader. So now the student doesn't have to come to me for a read aloud. If they know how to access and use the immersive reader tool and all of the amazing features that come with it, being able to change the color to a pleasing background, being able to speed up and slow down the voice, being able to change the size of the font so they can follow it better or use a line to follow it better, is so powerful. And now the students, those students who are so timid about using their accommodations in class because they didn't want to come ask you to read it, they didn't want to be seen as different, with a simple set of headphones at their desk, they now are on equal playing field with their peers because they're doing their own work at their own desk independently. And that independence, you'll find, I think, often breeds much more success if they can feel that's just a sense of accomplishment of being able to pick that up and do it themselves. I think they're much more likely to try other things, to branch out and be braver. So just an amazing accommodation providing read alouds. And I love, we're going to talk about language learners as well, but think about the translation feature because we're going to come back to that. Okay, let's talk about Flipgrid again. In Flipgrid, I can read to the students face to face. Now, I like to use this hand in hand. With my Windows 10 device, I use screen snapping by pressing the Windows key and holding it down, and then using my arrow keys. I can send the Flipgrid with my face to one half of the screen, and then I can pull up a copy of the story on the right hand side of the screen. So, what I love about this is that the students can see my face and watch my mouth move while I'm reading, which I think is really powerful. And at the same time, they can follow along on the text so that it allows them to go back and forth. And you can really make this work for students using simple tools in your recording, like pausing between paragraphs or stopping to clarify so the students can kind of find where you're at. And this just gives you another powerful way to provide a read aloud to students. In OneNote, the same idea is true. And this is also true in Teams again. So, what I say for OneNote is true for Teams. You can record yourself reading a text to your students so that they can hear your voice. And I just love in both. You can either, like I said, choose that Windows snap, screen snapping and do side by side. You can show the pages of the book, whatever is going to work best for your individual students' needs, but just such great tools. And then, of course, you can use live meetings. So, setting up a live meeting with your students when they're working remotely so that you can read to them. Again, not only are you providing their accommodation, but when it's in real time and you're in person with them, it provides such an opportunity to build that relationship with students, make them feel more confident in using those accommodations and growing themselves independently as well. So, hopefully, this gives you some great ideas for read alouds. All right, let's continue moving on. Translated materials. I did tell you we would come back to talking about English language learners. Um, Providing translated material can really make or break it for a student who is just new to the United States and really needs that support as they're learning English. So, for students with mobile devices, iPads, phones, tablets, Android, or iOS, it doesn't matter either one, you can download Microsoft's amazing translator app. That translator app is so awesome because it provides you a way to translate text in so many ways. The students can practice reading in English and then see it translated into their native language to check and see did they get it right or do they really understand what they just read. They can take a picture of a worksheet and see the translation laid right on top of it. Or they can even use the typing feature and just type in pieces of text to see what the translation is back and forth. It's just such an easy way, again, to empower students to be able to work on their own independently. I'd also want to encourage you to check out the translator in Immersive Reader. The Immersive Reader translator is so fantastic. It will not only translate the text, it's going to read it to the students. And again, it gives them such great control over the voice and the speed of how things are read to them. And then that removal of distractions when you're trying to learn a language can be so powerful. So, again, I'd encourage you to check out the immersive reader for your students who are learning English as a second language. Last but not least is the feature I'm actually using right now, or part of the feature. Using your subtitles in PowerPoint or the presentation translator in PowerPoint can be amazing. So, with the presentation translator download, I can actually translate an entire PowerPoint very easily into a different language. So I can offer the students not only my original in English, but then a perfect copy in their native language. And then look how beautiful this captioning feature is. So I have subtitles playing while I'm teaching. So I could set this up for the subtitles to be in the language of my student and then record a lesson for them where I'm speaking in English, but they can see the translation at the bottom. So it really helps them key in when they're not understanding something I'm saying to be able to see what I've said. Now, of course, be aware all translation tools do come. There's never going to be a translator tool that's 100% accurate. You've probably seen maybe some of the subtitles pop up where it didn't say exactly what I'd said. I know, for example, I've noticed while prepping for teaching you guys using the subtitles that it's been having trouble with ELL. So it really likes it when I say English language learners. So you'll kind of learn the ins and outs, figure out where it works best for you and your students. But I would encourage you to really try out these tools because, again, total game changers for our kids. All right, let's talk about providing an alternate setting with our last couple minutes here. So, oftentimes we're tasked with giving students an alternate setting. How on earth do we do that when they're not even with us? Well, amazingly enough, if you really think about what an alternate setting means, OneNote and Teams are great alternate settings. You are quite literally sending your classroom with your student wherever they are. Maybe it's just for them the simple not being in the classroom with 20 other kids. So your classroom is packaged and ready to travel. So the student in Teams can also have a very high level of communication with you, as well as a high level of communication with their peers. It's everything they need in a regular classroom at their fingertips, quite literally. So those are great alternate settings. Okay, with our last few seconds, I just want to encourage you to really experiment with your Microsoft tools that are already right at your fingertips because you've got everything you need to accommodate a student ready and waiting for you. If you have any questions or want to pick my brain in the future, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is listed on the screen, and I'm also happy to answer any questions you have about anything I've presented today. Thank you guys for hanging with me for this 15 minutes. And I hope that your school year goes amazingly well and that you're facing every challenge with grace and patience. And I just wish you all the best. Have a great time at the conference.